Hello everyone, and welcome back once again. As always, today we have a story that we would like to share with you. This is not merely a legal case. It is not simply a story about Thai workers traveling overseas in search of employment. Rather, it is a story that reflects human behavior within society. It reflects hope, poverty, inequality, labor exploitation, the manipulation of legal loopholes, and the pursuit of profit through the vulnerability of fellow human beings. Ultimately, it became one of the cases that sent shockwaves across the world. Today, we will explore the lessons behind the case of Thai berry pickers in Finland, a case that began with the dreams of ordinary people seeking a better life, but eventually became one of the most significant labor trafficking cases recorded in Finnish history. When people think of Finland, they often imagine a country known for its high quality of life, transparency, strong social welfare systems, and commitment to social justice. It is frequently ranked among the most trusted and well-governed countries in the world. Because of this reputation, many people assume that labor exploitation is something unlikely to occur in a country like Finland. Yet reality has shown that no matter how developed a country may be, whenever significant economic interests are involved, there remains a risk that human beings will exploit one another. The story begins with something surprisingly small: wild berries growing naturally in Finland's vast forests. Every summer, forests throughout Finland become filled with various kinds of wild berries, including blueberries, lingonberries, and cloudberries. These berries are not merely natural foods. They are valuable raw materials used in the food industry, beverage production, pharmaceuticals, health supplements, and export products that generate substantial economic value for businesses throughout the country. The challenge, however, is simple. These berries have economic value only when someone collects them from the forest. In previous generations, many Finns gathered wild berries as part of family traditions and outdoor activities. But as society changed and lifestyles evolved, fewer young people were willing to spend long hours walking through forests, working in unpredictable weather conditions, and performing physically demanding labor throughout the day. As a result, businesses began looking abroad for seasonal workers. Thailand became one of the most important source countries. Many Thai workers possessed agricultural experience, endurance for outdoor work, and perhaps most importantly, the hope of earning a substantial income within a relatively short period of time. In villages across Thailand, stories circulated about people who traveled to Finland, picked berries, and returned home with significant savings. Some paid off long-standing debts. Some built homes for their families. Some were able to support their children's education. Stories like these inspired many others to believe that berry picking in Finland could be a life-changing opportunity. Yet great hope is often accompanied by risks that are not immediately visible. Before departing, many workers borrowed money from banks, cooperatives, relatives, friends, or even informal lenders in order to finance the trip. They had to cover airfare, administrative fees, coordination and recruitment costs, documentation expenses, accommodation-related costs, and various other expenses associated with traveling abroad. For many families, these were not small amounts of money. In fact, they often represented the largest debt they had ever taken on. Because of this, workers placed enormous expectations on the income they hoped to earn in Finland. Many had already planned how they would use their earnings long before arriving, but few realized that reality might be very different from what they had expected. As increasing numbers of Thai workers traveled to Finland during berry picking seasons, concerns gradually began to emerge. At first, complaints were relatively limited, but over time, more and more workers started sharing their experiences. Some reported that their actual earnings were far lower than anticipated. Others stated that berry yields in certain areas were insufficient. Some found themselves working much harder than they had originally understood. Others encountered additional expenses they had never been informed about beforehand, and some eventually returned to Thailand carrying even more debt than when they had left. Instead of returning home with success, they found themselves facing greater financial burdens than ever before. As complaints continued to increase, Finnish authorities began paying closer attention. The investigation involved multiple organizations, including police authorities, national investigative agencies, prosecutors, human rights institutions, and anti-trafficking organizations. The deeper investigators looked into the situation, the more complex the findings became. What initially appeared to be labor-related concerns gradually evolved into a major criminal investigation. An important question emerged. How could berry picking become a human trafficking case? For many people, the term human trafficking immediately brings to mind kidnapping, forced prostitution, or unlawful confinement. However, modern legal definitions are considerably broader. If vulnerable individuals are exploited through debt burdens, deception, economic dependency, or circumstances that leave them with little practical ability to refuse or escape exploitation, the situation may qualify as labor trafficking under the law. Finnish prosecutors argued that many Thai workers were in an extremely vulnerable position. They carried significant debt before arrival. They depended heavily on coordinators and intermediaries. They were far from their families. They had limited understanding of local laws. They often could not communicate in Finnish. And when problems arose, they possessed very little bargaining power. Furthermore, many felt they had no real alternative. Stopping work could mean returning home without enough income to repay the debts they had incurred. As investigators examined these circumstances, they began to identify patterns consistent with the exploitation of human vulnerability. After years of gathering evidence, Finnish courts began hearing several important cases involving Thai berry pickers. One of the most widely discussed cases involved the company Kaiantama. The case became a turning point in Finland's labor history. The court reviewed extensive evidence, including business records, financial documents, and testimony from numerous Thai workers who had participated in berry picking operations over multiple years. The outcome generated significant public attention throughout the country. Senior company executives were found guilty of offenses connected to labor exploitation and human trafficking-related crimes and received legal penalties. Other individuals involved in labor recruitment processes also faced criminal proceedings. Later, in 2026, another major ruling was issued in a case that many media organizations described as the largest labor trafficking case in Finnish history. The case involved a substantial number of victims. Massive compensation payments were ordered, prison sentences were imposed, and business restrictions were issued against those involved. These cases forced Finnish society to re-examine a seasonal labor system that had existed for decades. The Finnish government began reviewing laws and policies more seriously. Previously, many berry pickers had been categorized in a way that resembled independent entrepreneurs, rather than traditional employees, limiting certain legal protections. Following these cases, that approach faced intense scrutiny. Authorities introduced new measures designed to strengthen protections for seasonal workers. Employers were expected to assume greater responsibility. Employment arrangements needed greater clarity. Oversight mechanisms became stricter, and the recruitment of foreign workers became subject to greater transparency. The impact was also felt in Thailand. Government agencies began examining recruitment processes that sent Thai workers abroad. Questions emerged regarding transparency of fees, pre-departure information, and protections available to workers after leaving the country. Many people began to recognize an important reality. Working in a developed country does not automatically guarantee protection from exploitation. Even the strongest laws cannot prevent abuse if they are not properly enforced. When we look beyond the legal proceedings, perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this case is the human behavior that lies beneath it. Poverty can lead people to accept risks they would otherwise reject. Debt can leave individuals with few alternatives. Hope can make people believe in a brighter future. At the same time, economic incentives can encourage some individuals to overlook the dignity and well-being of others. This case offers several important lessons. The first lesson is that economic vulnerability can easily become the starting point for exploitation. The second lesson is that decisions based on incomplete information can create unexpected risks. The third lesson is that labor rights and human rights should never stop at national borders. Wherever human beings go, their dignity deserves protection. The fourth lesson is that modern human trafficking does not always resemble what we see in movies. Sometimes it exists beneath seemingly legitimate documents. Sometimes it operates within respectable-looking business structures. Sometimes it functions inside legal economic systems. Yet when examined closely, we may discover that certain groups of people are being used primarily as tools for generating profit without possessing genuine bargaining power. And perhaps the final lesson is this: justice cannot exist without people willing to speak the truth, without victims willing to come forward, without investigators willing to examine difficult questions, and without courts committed to discovering the facts fairly and impartially. The case of Thai berry pickers in Finland is therefore not simply a story about wild berries. It is not merely a story about migrant workers. And it is not only a criminal case. It is a story of hope and disappointment. A story of power and vulnerability. A story about economic interests and human dignity. And above all, it serves as a reminder that behind every economic statistic, there are real human lives. Whenever human hope is transformed into a tool for profit, society, the law, and the justice system have a responsibility to protect those who are most vulnerable, and to preserve human dignity. This case also demonstrates that human behavior is not driven solely by necessity. At times, it is driven by greed, self-interest, and an endless desire for greater profit. Labor exploitation, the manipulation of legal loopholes, the use of poverty as a source of advantage, the treatment of people as economic instruments. These are dangers that can emerge in any society when effective oversight is absent. Although this case became international news and led to significant reforms, the reality is that many workers around the world may still be facing similar circumstances today. Their stories may simply remain untold. Or perhaps no one has yet been able to speak openly about them. For that reason, what we have discussed today is not merely a foreign news story. It is not simply a legal case that happened far away. It is an important cautionary tale for anyone considering overseas employment, anyone placing their hopes and promises of high earnings, and anyone involved in labor recruitment. Because every decision that affects human lives should be based on transparency, complete information, and responsibility toward our fellow human beings. Thank you to everyone who continues to listen, support, and encourage one another through this journey. Thank you for every comment, every suggestion, and every piece of constructive feedback you have shared with us. Your support motivates us to continue improving and creating better content with every episode. We value every opinion and remain committed to making our content more informative and meaningful for all of our listeners. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this program to support our channel. You are listening to
สถานีหยุดพักใครเหนื่อย
And until next time, goodbye and thank you for listening.